Welcome back. You're still watching the news review right here on Power Breakfast on Citizen TV with me, Freddie Ndimuli. We continue discussing the biggest talking point today, and this has been the main discussion since Friday. After that, some people call it handshake, others truce, others Unity Pact. But what exactly does it mean? Our biggest question was, and that's how we started the show, was it really genuine? Was it forced? Was it staged? And this is why, and I put it to you, back in 2016, August 22nd, something similar happened. President Uhuru Kenyatta and his family were having the memorial service of the founding father of the nation, the late Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, at the Holy Family Basilica. Surprisingly, Raila Odinga appeared in that event, but curiously, it was the same day that we were expecting the arrival of U.S. Secretary of State, back then John Kerry, to Kenya. On Friday, it was the exact same thing. Let's watch this video from 2016.
Tinga yuko hapa. Si ukuje usalimie watu ndio
Asante sana ndugu yangu. Mama Margaret, Mama Ngina na wageni wote wa shule wamefika hapa, hamjambo. I am very delighted that my brother has invited me, ambushed me in fact, to come and say a few. As a friend and as a Kenyan. And I always refer to my brother here as my younger brother. Mama Ngina knows where we're coming from. I was a little young boy in 1952. So I've got some very faint memories what was happening in our house in Kisumu on that day.
And the story continued about their history as the two families, the Odinga and the Kenyatta family. But that was back in 2016, August 22nd, the exact same day that U.S. Secretary of State back then, John Kerry, arrived in Kenya. 2 years later, 2018. And on the same day that U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson arrives in Kenya, we see the two leaders again calling each other brother and congratulating each other and becoming friends, despite the kind of animosity that we've seen in weeks and months heading to that. Hence our question, was what happened on Friday, whether we call it a handshake, truce or Unity Pact, was it forced by the U.S.? Was it staged just to please the U.S.? Joining the panel this morning, Sabina Chege had already introduced you, woman representative Murang'a County. I'd already asked the same question to Senator Ledama Olekina and Peter Mathuki, the Wiper Secretary General. I'll ask you the same question. Was it staged? Were we doing this simply because the Americans are coming?
I don't think so, and I would have loved to have to hear what the Senator said. But anyway, and I missed that part. I think it was not stage managed. It was something that was coming. And
so it was purely coincidental that it happened on the same day that Rex Tillerson was coming?
Yes, because I don't think even part of the discussions have been either whether the two can talk. But I think this is something, even from the content of what he said at the press conference, is something that has been arranged before, so not something that was hurriedly done, but it was top secret for one reason or the other, because most of us, we are either people who would want to influence the both leaders in different ways. And as you've seen the reactions from different sides, people have their own opinions. And I think what the two leaders decided, that this nation is bigger than any one of us, they decided to lock out everybody else, because they were the two candidates who are vying for the presidential position, their peers. And again, based on history, as you've seen even in that clip, that the two also have a history, the family, and when they call each other brother, I don't just think it's just a brotherhood. And the two also families have brought a lot of hatred and pain in this nation, and it was a good move for them just to shelve their own interest, and they take the interest of the nation at hand. And for me, I'm happy. For me, I'm waiting to see what unfolds, because
did it catch you by surprise?
Somehow, I saw it coming, but I didn't expect.
Senator Ledama says he was fully aware that the two leaders were going to meet. Were you also aware?
You know, it's easy to say you're fully aware because nobody knew. Even if somebody had a clue that they were meeting or talks were happening, we didn't expect the date or how fast or how soon that was to happen, or the methodology they were to use, whether they were first to agree and then call the other leaders and then now they can do.
But there were indications that something was happening.
Of course. And I can also say that Raila is a smart politician, and I think I've told Senator before that this is what he was meant to do from the word go. He's been there in politics, he's our senior, and he needed to offer leadership and become a statesman. And I think he's a smart politician because now a lot of people, because there was some kind of hatred created, but now a lot of people have started to warm up towards Raila. And you never know now then what happens if he decides to vie on next 2022. Because I think the dynamics have changed. The people who really, you know, there was this love to hate relationship.
Yes. The dynamics have obviously changed, but Peter Mathuki, the people seated on either side of you say they were aware of what was happening, that these talks, they just knew, yes, something is happening. Had you any clue that there were such talks going on or such discussions culminating in that truce or Unity Pact?
You know, I started by saying, obviously, the country comes first. And secondly, we kept on saying that most of the principals in NASA, even the three who didn't attend, kept on pushing for dialogue. And I remember even saying, when the party leader of OIPA came from Germany, kept on saying, it's important that Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga takes time to talk for the good of this country. And therefore, the issue of dialogue is something that has been on the table. And everyone
so
knew.
you were also aware?
No, I wouldn't say that we were aware. And what I'm saying is that they were not aware, and that they released a statement to the effect that they were not even aware. They were not privy to the meeting, to the discussions. Then, but again,
how is it, the question, how is it that a member of the National Assembly, she may have a position within the party, but not as high in comparison to the principals in NASA? Surely, Senator Ledama Olekina is not one of the principals in NASA, but he was aware. How come you were not aware?
Indemoli, do you expect
your party leader was not aware?
Indemoli, do you expect any of them to say anything different?
No.
I started by saying, let me just finish. I started by saying, if any of those, either in Jubilee, in ODM, would make a statement that is different from what is expected of them, of course they would expect the consequences. And therefore it's important. And therefore it's important to appreciate that there are those who are making political capital, and I started by saying this, out of, for example, if you're in Jubilee, by saying how bad Raila is, and if they don't say that, obviously they will not get their seats, and vice versa. And therefore now that these two leaders have come together, something that we all appreciate, and nobody has said it's bad to come together. The only thing we are saying, let it be a dialogue that is anchored on national and public interest. Not because you kept on you have said here, in the past they have come together and disagree. So what would happen tomorrow if now President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, they disagree on this at personal level? Where do we anchor this kind of a dialogue? And I say the most important thing, it must be anchored on a legal framework that will guarantee, because that is a security for Kenyans. It must be anchored on something, because it's supposed they disagree.
Senator, you wanted to respond to what
two issues. First of all, I wanted to correct you in your early statement that you said we're in NASA and we're going, that I contradicted myself. I want to make it very clear to you that ODM is ready to go at it alone if it is forced to do so. However, ODM is part of NASA. And I made it very clear to you that these political parties, ODM, Jubilee, they are owned by selfish individuals, people who use you and dump you. So they have all come to realize that now these political parties are no longer owned by individuals, they are owned by the Kenyans. And by them realizing that Kenyans are the ones who are driving the agenda, Kenyans are the ones who own these political parties, they said, you know what? It goes back to what my colleague said here. Kenya is bigger than two individuals. On the second issue is that, I want to tell my brother is that, you know, when he said that, do you expect them to say anything different? Listen, everything that was happening in this country, the divisions, the divisive politics, will show you that unless these two people come together, there's no way we're going to move forward. I mean, look at the business of the House in Parliament. You know, when you look at the standing orders, the way they were drafted, these people ensured that we are going now, you bring your bills, we'll kill them. You kill our bill, we'll kill your bill. Because if you look at everything, nothing is going to move forward. I mean, in the Senate, we have 19 committees. Out of the 19 committees, the opposition is only chairing one committee. The other committees is chair, vice chair, Jubilee. Okay. You know, and then when you move on like that, there's nowhere this country is going. Okay. So with the pressure within, you know, we realize that we all have to talk about and practice and talk about politics of inclusivity. You know, the moment you start saying, no, we're better than you, we're losing.
Okay.
You know?
Okay. Are you just reading a party script when you say you are aware?
Not really. And I think one thing we need to realize as Kenyans is that the elections are over. And I think this was the best move that the two principals decided to make. Because one, as the senator said, things were not moving. And even in the nation, the investors were shy to come to Kenya because they never knew. And especially when we started having, there's another president who has been sworn in. And so nobody knew what was there. And also Raila had got into this game of next week, I'm going to unleash something new. Next week, I'll do something new. And so there was a lot of, you know, anxiety in Kenya. And so for the two to come together, I think it's a move that everybody should really appreciate. And I want to say also, what Mathuki was saying about what is there, what is in it, we need to do, you know, like some agreement or legal framework. I don't think it's important. We've seen this thing coming in, and we have seen people going forward and saying we had agreed, and so that this is the source of our fighting. I think goodwill is what we need in this nation. We need people who are genuine. Okay. We want people who can be sincere and say, for the sake of the nation, let's shelf everything that we want to do for the sake of this nation and for the other principles. And I know they might feel a bit left out. You know, things were
they are indeed feeling left out. And the headline on the Standard says Raila has not spoken to us. That's a feeling from the NASA leadership.
You know, I mean, communication and speaking doesn't have to be verbally. I have to speak to you. Sometimes action speaks louder than words. And I think he has spoken to them. Let them wake up and smell the coffee. He has already spoken to them. And I think the best thing they should do is come in and work together with him. And, you know, I've said we have an agenda for this nation. We have the big four. And what they should be looking at now with the big four, how do we come and plug in? How are we able to criticize the government? Because now the door is open.
Senator, I hope you're listening to Sabina Chege, because now she says it's time now we work on the big four. Is that the premise of this?
Let me say one thing. Let me say one thing. I don't agree with my sister Sabina Chege that we don't need a legal framework. On the contrary, I agree with my brother. Because unless we have a legal framework, there's nothing which is going to move on. Look at the appointments recently. If the appointments recently are really pointing towards an environment which is inclusive, then they will not have been skewed. We expect, and I'm going to actually predict what is going to happen in the next DPP. You know, I don't want to mention names, but I expect that the person who is going to be appointed as the next DPP of this country is going to be a person who is going to be, I mean, they're competent, you know, they qualify, but they're going to be rewarded for having been there for the president. And what I would like us to do is to have a legal framework and to see that the entire country is included. We are suffering a lot. If you look at the legislations which are being brought forward by the government, they are more in parliament today, they are more inclined to creating more parastatals, clawing back on devolution. If we are honest enough, then we must say, let us put everything on the table. Yes. You know, let us talk about corruption. Let us talk about devolution. Okay? The Constitution is very clear. The Public Finance Management Act is very clear. Every single penny that is budgeted for, when that money has already been approved by the Senate, has got to be sent to the county governments. But that is not happening. Because we used our money to fight, to carry out another election. We use our money to campaign. We use our money in a way that is not right. So unless we have this conversation, and unless we agree on a legal framework, we're not going anywhere.
Let me read this paragraph from page 6 of the Standard. And this is a quote. They're quoting Musalia Mudavadi. He says, personally, I'm extremely disappointed, but it's confounding just how Kenyans must feel and wonder about the reason for his volte-face, that's abrupt about turn, from the path of seeking justice. It is as if suddenly all the injustices committed against Kenyans are worth his station near the seat of power. Let's talk about Raila Odinga. And this is the kind of confusion. Even the NASA principals see now the deal, meaning that Raila is closer to the seat of power. Does it mean that he's getting a position in government? Does it mean, as Mheshimiwa Sabina Chege says, that now the result of this Truce Unity Pact is that now Raila Odinga is going to help Uhuru Kenyatta work on the Big Four agenda? Does it mean, as Senator says, that now it's the NASA agenda of seeking electoral justice that will prevail? No one knows what exactly this Truce Handshake Unity Pact means. Do you have an idea?
This is what it means according to me. First, when we start by saying, as a party, we are at peace with what is happening. We are at peace because we are vindicated, and people kept on saying, calling us all manner of names. The watermelon, which by the way is a very nice fruit. They kept on saying all manner of things. And we said, and when we never went to swear in the so-called swearing in, we were saying it is not a process that is yet on time. So we need to give it a bit of time. So we give dialogue time. But now, what has happened? The biggest now winner in this is President Uhuru, because now he has been legitimized. Let me finish. He has been legitimized. When actually Raila Odinga goes to say, let us now shake and let us move on, that is actually telling him, now I recognize you as the president.
And I endorse you.
I endorse you. When you look at this statement, which is signed by both, it is written, His Excellency President of the Republic of Kenya. And Raila and His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga. But one is president. What does that say? They are signing to say, yes, you have even endorsed and agreed that indeed now legitimately I am the president. So President Uhuru is the winner in this particular case. There is, Mheshimiwa Sabina is talking of the 4-point agenda, which is okay. But NASA had 5 agendas as well. And I kept on saying is electoral reforms and justice. It is about devolution. Is about strengthening the judiciary, is about strengthening police reforms, is about the executive. And therefore what we expect to see is marrying the two, so that again we move this country. I said, look, there are some people who have lost their lives in the process of this, and therefore let it be driven by love of this country, not about 2 individuals. We appreciate, we respect
Sabina Chege, of course, from the Jubilee standpoint, you would want to see it as an endorsement, as acceptance of the legitimacy of President Uhuru Kenyatta, and therefore the Big Four agenda of Jubilee and the president. That is what should be on the flag.
Well, it's very interesting to see, like our leaders have refused to move on, and you know, we've come from a long journey. We did the elections and we campaigned for more than 1 year, and we lost a lot as a nation. And when we talk about swearing in, I'm still shocked that somebody thinks that there were 2 presidents in this nation. And so you know, we have only had 1 president. So when the letter is signed, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, it's only 1 for sure, and they know even what they did was, it was a mock swearing in. It was not really swearing in. And I'm also happy to know that these people actually skipped. They actually duped Raila and skipped to go for swearing in because they thought it was not the right time, but they didn't tell Kenyans then that is what was their position. They lied. And they said there were some phone numbers that were to be called when they were switched off with a foreign number, which I don't know how you can call a switched off line. So anyway, what we are saying, let us move on, because the nation is bigger. And as he said, we have our agenda already. That is, it's already ongoing, and they had their agenda, but you cannot plan when you're outside. And it doesn't mean that Raila has actually become part of Jubilee or he's in Jubilee. What he has said, let us sit and reason together. Because initially what happened is that the government would say this, the opposition would they say this. Even in Parliament, there was pull and push. When the government has already given the list of the CSAs and they are vetted, then the opposition walks out. And then after that, we go for some other meetings in Mombasa, and the opposition is there, and people are still drawing salaries that Kenyans are paying. So there was a lot of sideshows. And I think what the two have done is that let's avoid the sideshows. Let's forget what has happened, and not really forgetting. The elections are over, but then how do we make this nation move? And when I mentioned about the Big Four or the agendas of this nation, all these things that he's talking about, electoral reforms, about the corruption, everything else, they come in. Because nothing will move in this nation if we continue stealing from the coffers of the taxpayers. Nothing will move.
Very happy to say that.
And so what we need to do now is, it's a reality check. How best can we tap from the opposition side? Because they still remain opposition. How best can we be able to tap from the brains? Because I am very sure there are very good brains that are on the other side, but they could not be included in sharing what they have because they were seen as enemy. And what we have done now,
Senator,
let me respond to
Senator.
Yes.
Even as you respond, what happens now to the push for electoral justice? What happens to matters like NRM, resist? What happens to the People's Assembly? Does this mean now that Uhuru Kenyatta's presidency has been legitimized in the eyes of Jubilee, of ODM, that now you recognize Uhuru Kenyatta as the president?
Let me respond to the last one, and then I'll go back and respond to Mudavadi's issue. I think there are two things at play here. These are two individuals who realize that one way or the other, they have to leave a legacy. Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, whether he likes it or not, as per the current constitution, he cannot run again to be president. So he must leave a legacy. That is number one. Raila Amolo Odinga has realized that he has worked hard to be able to bring in political justice, political inclusivity. If this becomes the last time he would ever run or seek office, he wants to leave a legacy. So it is very, very important for the two. And when you listen to what Raila has been saying, Raila has been talking about political equality, you know, and Uhuru has been talking about economic empowerment, equity. We all need to be able to develop this country. So when you see those two coming together, one cannot achieve the other because these issues are interrelated. There's no way you're going to have economic development in this country when the country is not stable politically. So it is not a lie, it's a fact that Raila Amolo Odinga has a serious following. It is also not a lie or a fact that Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, you know, economically, you know, he has to build his country, to leave a legacy. So once the two of them realize that this is it, they have to set their egos aside.
Okay.
So that's number one. Number two, I don't agree with my brother to say that the winner here is Uhuru. The winner here are the people of Kenya. The poor people who started their businesses because of devolution. They have never been paid because there's no money going into the counties because of corruption, because of all these ills that affect this nation. And I believe that State House did recognize Raila as the people's president. But the fact that they could not be able, because he's not the president of Kenya as per the constitution, there's only one president as per the constitution, which I am alive to that fact, and there's no way that I can be able to live in denial. But the people of Kenya, who who believes in Raila, and they voted for him overwhelmingly, also wanted to see him in a position whereby he's their president. And finally, when I come to the issue of Mudavadi, I think even if I was Mudavadi, I'd be disappointed, because I'm thinking 2022. I want to be able to be somewhere. So this is about politics of 2022 in play. Because they also want to feel like they want to be there. And some of them are saying, oh, no. I think actually the person who has benefited here is someone else, and William Ruto has been kicked out. I don't believe that.
But the question, the main question, and I asked you this, and I don't think you really answered me, because up on, the few weeks leading to that meeting on Friday, there was a lot of discussion, a lot of activities taking place, NRM one of them.
Yes.
People's Assembly.
Yes.
And we're waiting for the culmination of the People's Assembly with that swearing-in ceremony. Yes. Of course, NASA maintained that they still did not recognize President Uhuru Kenyatta's legitimacy. Does all that change?
I think if you look at the statement, which was drafted by the two gentlemen, those issues are factored in. Because if we're talking about devolution, inclusivity, you know, the reason why we're pushing for the People's Assembly is for that the people can say, these are the issues that ail us. Not just listen. These are the issues that ail us. These are the problem. Can we talk about them?
Okay.
Now, if the two gentlemen, in their logic or in their wise move, decide, let us have this People's Assembly, but let's include everybody so that we know what ails these people so that we can move on. So be it.
Okay.
I think the issue of NRM, if I might comment on it, is that when you feel excluded and you want to fight for your position, remember, leadership is not given. You've got to fight for it. So that is what led to it. You know, does it have serious implication on the economy? Yes. You know, this boycott affected very many businesses. You know, do I really want to see the boycotts? No, I don't.
Okay.
You know, I want to see a country that moves forward.
Okay. Because of time, we're just about to end, but I'll give you one more chance. But before that, we do have some tweets. If we could sample them now and just sample some of the feedback from our viewers before we wrap up this discussion. Do we have the tweets? Yes, the first one there. At Honorable Otienda Mole says, why are people complaining of non-inclusion in Uhuru Raila meeting? This was a meeting for presidents only. Professor James Ole Keapi says, in embracing Uhuru Raila handshake and agreement, we should not vilify the other leaders, be they from Jubilee or core principles of NASA. We are all central to reconciliation and peace of the country. Very sober comment there. Dr. Alfred Mutua, the governor for Machakos. Kenya's feeling included in the Nairobi agenda is vital. In the national agenda is vital. Uhuru and Raila are courageous, and I urge them not to be derailed by a few known fence-sitters. This new beginning is about all Kenyans and development, and not using tribal cocoons to bargain for positions. Kenyans first. Yes, at Senator Ledama Olekina, this is a different Twitter handle. Raila Odinga meeting President Uhuru Kenyatta does not mean that we cannot keep the government on toes. We will support what is right as long as it is for the good interest of Mwananchi, and will reject what is wrong. At least an indication that you'll still be in opposition. Peter Mathuki also, the Uhuru Raila talks must not be for the two only, but must be guided by national and public interest. And the last one here, at Hassan Ali Joho, Governor for Mombasa, Governor 001, for all of us. Too much blood has been shed, too many families broken, too many dreams shattered, and too much property destroyed, As Nelson Mandela once said, even if we fight to ashes, it is amongst those ashes that we shall dialogue. Absolutely. The country needs a new beginning.
Absolutely.
But at least there is some recognition that ODM, Raila Odinga, will still be in the opposition. At least that's the understanding. Not that he's going to get a position in government. There's been a lot of confusion, and talking to people out there, people are even talking about the position of Prime Minister already. As you give your final comments, what should we expect moving forward? Let's start with Sabina Chege.
For me, what I expect is now, I'm looking forward for a sober National Assembly, because we have our role as to oversight what is happening in the government. And of course, now that there's no competition whether one needs to please or whichever side, the best thing is for us to work for the people who voted for us. I'm looking forward for a sober nation. I'm looking forward for more genuine talks. I'm looking forward for the opposition coming in and offering solution, because sometimes as a nation we are quick to criticize, but we don't have any solution. And I'm also looking forward for a government that is going to be open to be criticized, to be given new ideas, and to embrace the ideas from Kenyans. So for me, I'm looking forward for 2-3 years to come, and as we look forward for the to look at our constitution, and if you're going to have any referendum, that is a referendum that will focus on Kenyans, not on individual selfish interest. And I'm also looking forward for the other people who feel that they have been left out, for them to actually embrace the move, to support the two, either from the Jubilee side or from the NASA side. And I think now the issues of resisting and everything is done, and what we need to do is offer solutions, because we have learned from our neighbors. Some of our neighboring countries have suffered a lot, and we would not like to go through that road. And so I thank the President and also Raila Amolo Odinga for that move, and I hope Kenyans will embrace it. Let's continue praying for our nation, because I think we have prayed a lot from the time we started the pull and push, and I think this is a prayer that was answered.
Okay. Yeah. Kalonzo Musyoka, Wetangula and Mudavadi meet today to plot their political future, and Raila is not invited, and is now an outsider since his meeting with Kenyatta last Friday. That's on the front page of the Daily Nation. We do understand there's a meeting today between the three principals. Raila Odinga, according to the dailies, could be going for a 4-day visit to Tanzania to visit President Magufuli. What should we expect going forward?
In fact, I will start by saying, my sister talks of opposition and government. In the current dispensation, we don't have an opposition on
minority and majority.
It's minority and majority, and that's something we must appreciate going forward. So that, again, we learn now to bring Kenyans together. But the meeting that is supposed to be taking place today is a meeting that was planned for before even Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila met. And it's my hope that the four principals of NASA will be able to meet, so that again they can update each other on the new political developments. So I don't expect Raila not to attend. We are expecting, of course, because he was chairing the meeting, of course, as indeed they need to meet. So it's important that they meet and talk about this. But to me, the most important thing, my brother, is how do we make this process people-centered? So that again, we are not driven by one or two people agreeing to come together, and the whole process again is not anchored on anything, and therefore the American secretary leaves tomorrow, and the whole thing again goes haywire. It's important that it is people-centered. It is important that it is now anchored on a clear legal framework, and it must have national and public interest. Remember, and I said this, people lost their lives. How do you even compensate? So as we move forward, we need to be even talking, how do you compensate those people and families who lost their beloved ones? Okay. So I think it's important. So when we are saying, when we are talking of even the winner or loser, true, I agree that Kenya, if all leaders come together, imagine a situation where if Uhuru, on behalf of Jubilee, was seen meeting Raila, Kalonzo, Mudavadi, Wetangula, and even the rest, saying, now let us move forward. The level of confidence, it should have been there. And we are not saying they did, but dialogue is the key thing. Okay. But it must be national in nature. Okay.
Yeah. As you give your final comments, do you think that it's time for Raila Odinga to be seen to dump this NASA baggage?
I'm not going to respond to that. I think
Why not?
To tell you the truth is that what I would like to say is that I would like to see everything they have put on paper here actually being actualized. I'd like to see the steering committee or the strategic committee of NASA, which was really trying to push for this, all these reforms, being put in the driving seat, with also the strategies from Jubilee to be able to put everything together. Number two, I think I would like to see us committed as a country in fighting corruption, fighting divisive politics, and really pushing for a strong devolution. By that, I would like to see that any legislation which are brought into the House, into either the lower house or the upper house, are more inclined towards strengthening devolution. Number two, I'd like to see us, moving to a process whereby we will soberly amend the Constitution. Amend the Constitution to include everyone, so that you don't feel left out. By so doing, we'll be solving a lot of problems. And I think all this can be done when there is goodwill, there is a legal framework, and also people are committed. Because what normally happens is that at this point, at this juncture, all of a sudden, you see that Raila has started having new friends who want to be put in the driving seat, and they're not there in the struggle. You see that Uhuru has new friends who are not there in the struggle. The truth is, Kenyans are hurting. And the only way that we can move forward is for us to continue embracing each other as brothers and sisters. And finally, on the side of the government, I'd like to see them committed to having a balance in the legislature. Because this issue of having committees chaired by all Jubilee, you chair and you deputize it, then there's nothing you can really add there. And the judiciary must be respected. Let us support independent institutions. If we let the judiciary do their work, we let the legislative arm do its work, and the executive do its work, then this country will grow. And for posterity, for the future of this country, that is the only way we can be able to move forward.
Thank you so much, Senator Ledama Olekina, at Ledama on Twitter. Senator from Narok County, Peter Mathuki, Secretary General Wiper Party, at P. Mathuki on Twitter, and Sabina Chege, Woman Representative, Muranga County, at Sabina Chege on Twitter, helping us understand this big discussion. Still quite a number of people asking questions on Twitter, online. We'll continue seeking more answers as we go along, because it continues to be the biggest discussion this morning. Of course, the other big story is Shujaa Kenya Sevens team reaching the finals, other Vancouver Sevens, but having to settle for silver. Remember, Power Breakfast continues up until 9. That's a hashtag to use. My name is Fred Ndimuli. Good morning.